Finally, the international break is no more and club football came back with a bang because this Saturday we just witnessed some banging games. Banging, banging, banging. We just watched Liverpool bottle it, Manchester City bottle it, and Chelsea are starting to look like they're in a title race. And also Barcelona played their first game back at the Camp Nou in many days. Right, Burkinho? Are you excited for this? He's excited, man. Everyone is excited. You know, I'm so excited that it's got me eating bananas at 11 p.m. And I'm serious about that because I got one right here. This is just for late night snack, honestly. So first off, let's talk about that Liverpool-Nottingham Forest game because my oh my, have Liverpool actually finished themselves off? You know, on this channel, this second channel, I actually made a video about Liverpool being finished. But this just confirms it. No longer am I going to be talking about them in a title race at this point. You know, because they need a miracle. They genuinely need a miracle. They need all of the powers of above to come down and bless them with an unbeaten streak for the rest of the season. Because there is no chance in hell, heaven, earth, the water, the ground, the fire. There is no chance that Liverpool make it to the top 3, top 2. There's no way. And it's weird because going into this season, we were saying that it's a wraps. They bought Isak, they bought Wirtz, they bought Frimpong, they bought Ding Dong, they bought Ikatike. Like, they bought everyone. And we had already written off the Premier League. But now looking back at it, is this all a plan? You know, the Dexter sound. Was this Klopp's plan to win the Premier League with the players that he brought in and let Arne Slot fail? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe I'm gonna start a little theory. I'm gonna type that up on Reddit and just create a conspiracy theory about Arne Slot being a double agent. He's too round as well. There's something about him that's dodgy. Now, in this game against Nottingham Forest, they would lose 3-0 at Anfield, something that they haven't done in a while. Back-to-back games. First off, in the 35th minute, it's a scruffy clearance from a corner. The ball falls to Murillo, and Murillo turns into R9 Ronaldo with the finish that he displays. And honestly, looking at this goal by Murillo, what on earth is Van Dijk doing with this clearance? Like, I don't know what's happened to Van Dijk. You know, I have been one of his highest praisers in recent times, calling him the best centre-back in the Premier League. But this downfall must be studied and analysed. Not by me though, because that's still my goat. In the 43rd minute, Nottingham Forest had the ball in the back of the net again via Igor Jesus. But this one was actually disallowed via a handball. And even that decision was quite questionable, but Nottingham Forest didn't really take it so harshly. Because right after half time, they come out, play a little bit of magic on that left-hand side before Nico Williams cuts it back, and it's Savona who puts the ball into the back of the net. Fullback to fullback action. This is like prime Clichy and Bakary Sagna. In my whole lifetime, they never did this, but there you go. Liverpool were clearly asleep at the restart and didn't listen to the advice that Arne Slot's bald head was giving them at half time because clearly they've conceded instantly and are back on the back foot.
You sussy baka!
And then to top it off, in the 78th minute, it's a direct free kick towards the Liverpool goal. You know, their winger gets it, cuts inside, takes a shot. Alisson parries it away, but it falls in the path of Morgan Gibbs-White, who easily just slots it home. It's now 3-0 to Nottingham Forest, and Liverpool have been stunned by Sean Dyche, a manager that has long history with beefing Liverpool. Just remember a few seasons back when Dyche and Klopp were going to go toe-to-toe in a brawl. But this time, Liverpool are no match under the managerial constructs of Arne Slot. And at this point, there are so many problems for Liverpool to address. You know, first of all, that defence is absolutely disgraceful. The likes of Konate and Van Dijk in this game were miserable to say the least. They need signings, but not the ones that they made in the summer. They need defensive reinforcements, and that's something that they should have addressed, and they just didn't. And now they're getting linked to the likes of Semenyo. Bro, what is Semenyo going to add in this squad? Well, looking at the form of Mo Salah, he might add something, maybe a shot on goal. Because despite Salah being their key marquee man, you know, the star guy, he's supposed to be the Messi of Liverpool, I don't know what has happened since he got that contract. You know, in the game he created maybe a couple chances, but all round he was poor. Most of the Liverpool players were poor. Isak started this game and nobody's talked about him once because he was ghostly once again. Starting 4 games and losing 4 games for Liverpool since he's joined. But you know what? This is not a Liverpool video, and if they lose one more, I will make an entire proper video on the main channel. They're going to get full exposure. But let's just put our bananas in the sky for Nottingham Forest performance, because that was legendary. Let's not act like Sean Dyche hasn't revamped this entire Nottingham Forest team. You know, praise to the Dyche. Now, after Liverpool failed against Nottingham Forest, we weren't thinking that Manchester City were going to do the same against Newcastle, because their record against Newcastle was somewhat flawless, with their last loss to Newcastle coming several years ago. And in this game, similarly to Liverpool, Manchester City had multiple opportunities to put themselves up early on. The likes of Foden had multiple opportunities to put the ball in the back of the net, but failed, with one of the occasions happening where Shah actually tackled him after he attempted to score. And from what it looked like, it could have been a penalty, and on any other day it would have been a penalty, but it just wasn't given. The referee in this game was a bit of a disgrace, let me not lie. And there's multiple opportunities in this game, with a cutback even leading to Haaland missing a pretty good opportunity to get his 100th goal in the Premier League. But also Newcastle had opportunities too, with Walter having numerous amounts of chances to slot the ball home. And despite missing these chances, I think his all-round game was ideal for a striker. And let's just quickly mention that a lot of Newcastle fans were bummed out, you know, seeing Isak go to Liverpool and saying, how could we replace him? We cannot replace him. But they have replaced him. They've replaced him with someone that's in the same archetype and is showing that he's better this season. Maybe not in the long run, but right now, he's looking better. Then finally in the second half, in the 63rd minute, it's the likes of Bruno Guimaraes and Harvey Barnes linking up in a bit of transitional play to break this Manchester City line, with Harvey Barnes taking a shot outside of the 18-yard box that just floats in, zipping into the bottom left corner of the goal. And honestly, let's just give a little round of applause to Harvey Barnes in this game, because this not only would be his first goal in the game, but also he had multiple opportunities and was very deadly for Newcastle. Along with Bruno Guimaraes, who was causing a bunch of problems and being very physical in the midfield, as he always does. However, the referee needed to be questioned in this game because it was awful. At points I had to double check and be like, yo, Burkinho, was that a foul? And he's looking at me and he's saying, yeah, that is a foul. But the referee ain't giving no opportunities, no free kicks, no nothing. And this tone of the referee being absolutely on something this game would be linked to Manchester City's goal, because they would score in the 68th minute, just about 5 minutes later after Newcastle had scored. It's Doku on that right hand side that does a little shift and then crosses it into the box, but it goes all the way to Ryan Cherki. Ryan Cherki then tries to shoot for himself, but the deflection goes into the path of Ruben Dias. And Ruben Dias, just like Murillo did against Liverpool, pulled out a lovely finish. A finish that was deflected in, going through the legs of Shah, but also into the back of the net. But still, we take those. The score's now 1-1, but straight after this goal, Ruben Dias's excitement gets to him. Something like Sanji from One Piece. You know, his nose starts bleeding. And because of this blood in his nose, he's forced to get off the pitch. He's now having an argument with the referee while Pep Guardiola is, you know, managing the situation, while they're also trying to put some buds in his nose. And while this is happening, Newcastle are on the attack, trying to get their lick back. And as Ruben Dias is coming onto the pitch, Newcastle are taking a corner. He quickly gets back to his battle stations, sets up his defence, and the ball is whipped in. The ball's then whipped in, Donnarumma's flapping about in the box, and it's chaos. It gets headed out by Guardiola, but then headed back into the box, and then Guardiola's there to try and stop it again. But I think it's like Harvey Barnes who manages to shift it to the right hand side. Murphy then lobs the ball back into the box. It's Voltemade with his long neck headering the ball towards goal and across it. Then Guimaraes manages to put it onto the crossbar, and then Harvey Barnes is there to put it into the goal. It's now 2-1 to Newcastle, and all of this just happened in like 10 minutes. It was crazy, a frenzy of opportunity. And then from there, we just knew that it was going to be a battle. You know, Newcastle were going to lock up shop and not let Manchester City penetrate their goal. And the script was written and played out, because that's exactly what happened. Manchester City just looked dire after that. with Haaland not really getting any clear opportunities to score, and Pep Guardiola making, in my opinion, some silly substitutions, taking off the likes of Doku, bringing on toothless players in the likes of Oscar Bob and Savio in a situation that they just couldn't handle. They were doing the same thing over and over again. You know, I don't think the highlights online are going to do it justice, but Savio and Oscar Bob was so boring. They were so boring. They were not taking on their man. They were not going past anyone. They were not trying anything. Savio maybe put a couple balls into the box, but Oscar Bob was loose. And Pep Guardiola subbed off the likes of Cherki and Doku, who were actually doing something. Foden had a ghostly game after missing opportunities in the first half, and Haaland, of course, you know, he's not one of them strikers that's going to go drop deep and create the chance for himself. He needs some sort of guy that's going to provide him with something. But if there's nothing, then what can he do? Punch a defender. This is just another one of them games that makes the footballing world question Pep Guardiola and Manchester City this season, because they have been so good, but also there have been patches where they've been so bad. But Newcastle, you know, they are honestly looking like Titan killers at this point. You know, they go up against a lot of big teams and they provide us with big performances, but it's against the smaller sides where they do struggle a lot of the time. And now that kind of begs the question, with Liverpool losing, Manchester City losing and Chelsea winning, are Chelsea now in this title race? You know, Arsenal sit firmly at the top, but in second, Chelsea are warming up their seat. They're making themselves comfy in second place in the Premier League after being called, you know, £1 billion bottle jobs last season. And in their fixture against Burnley, they were comfortable. The likes of Jamie Bino-Gittins and Pedro Neto linking up for the first goal in the game. And then it's Mark Gui that is doing something that I rarely see in football these days, actually trying to take on his man and not being a pace abuser. Because do you know that if you don't have pace, you can still take on a player in football? You just need to utilize your body in ways that, you know, will manipulate the defender. And Mark Gui, you know, he's not the fastest, but in this situation, if you just slow it down and watch it, it's brilliant. You know, body manipulation to get around the defender before teeing up an opportunity that Pedro Neto slotted away. Actually, it wasn't Pedro Neto, it was Enzo Fernandez, my bad. But again, Chelsea looks stronger and stronger week in and week out, and it's not like they're playing the biggest of teams in Burnley, but it's just another win that they should be getting and they are getting. And finally, let's just quickly touch upon that Barcelona game, because they would win 4-0 against Athletic Club, aka Bilbao, with Lewandowski getting the first goal at the newly refurbished Camp Nou. You know how crazy that is? You know, the oldest guy in living centuries. But my favourite goal had to be Ferran Torres' goal to make it 2-0. And it's not because of Ferran Torres' finish, but it's about that assist by Lamine Yamal. At times, his Trivela honestly looks like prime Toby Jizzle. You know, Toby Jizzle from the Sidemen? His Trivela shot, if you guys know, is on par with Lamine Yamal. And Lamine Yamal has obviously demoed his game after Toby Jizzle, because this ball is phenomenal. He just does it with ease at this point. It's just an attribute that he's collected in his arsenal of abilities, and he pulls it out just like that nonchalantly, and Ferran Torres finishes it off beautifully. Fermin Lopez then makes it 3-0, and then the 4-0 is another bit of Lamine Yamal magic with the assist, with him dusting off a couple players before threading a ball to Ferran Torres, who finished off again, getting 2 in this game. And Barcelona just looked dominant, you know, a little bit of bounce back in a new, you know, stadium. It's just that new home stadium bounce, and they're looking as comfortable as ever. This was my take on some of the Saturday games that I actually paid attention to, and you guys let me know if we should talk about today's games tomorrow, so the Sunday games tomorrow. And hopefully you enjoyed this. This has been Jib and Burkinio talking to you for a while.